Welcome to the Beyond Self-Made podcast, brand new.
Thank you for having me. It's
Very happy to have you. So, the podcast itself is really about authentic relationships. It's about leadership under adversity. I've had the pleasure of talking to a lot of people who have very unique stories and maybe stories of perseverance through adversity, career reinvention, which, as we were talking before, there's almost a feeling in the air that so many people want to have that.
Mm.
And I just thought I wanted to reach out to some people who um, embody that. And you were one of the people I thought of. Michelle Baggs, by the way. Uh, Michelle, going back, and memories are, I always say, they're all so different, right? My memory from you is being on the fire truck with Flag Fire and then seeing you come up as a paramedic on the ambulance.
Yeah.
And then we ran a few calls together here and there, see each other occasionally. And then I remember a little pivot, and I'd hope to get to it, where you and your husband, Morgan, were starting Insurgent Fitness.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a few years, and now I'm a member of Insurgent Fitness, and Morgan is a coach of mine for jiu-jitsu. And then so I got to get maybe a more indirect look at what you're doing with your life. I know I got off the fire truck, I think either right before or right after you got off the ambulance.
I got off in January 1st, 2023 is when I resigned.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so
Quite a memorable date for me.
I was 6 months later. Yeah. And then, yeah, so I see not only mirrors and stories, but then also I know that you have other ambitions and ideas and leaning into your own authenticity. And I thought, I got to get her on. So
I appreciate that so much. Yes, yet again, another career pivot. I've had a few.
I love it. I love it. And I think it's going to resonate with others as well. And so very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Before we get going, every new guest gets a personalized copy of
Thank you.
the book. So
that's why I came. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just dig a little. Like, how'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in a very traditional, I like to say traditional Christian household, just so it can resonate with a little bit of a wider audience. But I was raised traditional LDS. So I grew up in a Mormon household, which is very patriarchal, but very loving. And I do want to put that out there, although I don't continue to practice. It was a very loving, stable home, but very much into those traditional values.
Okay, and where'd you grow up?
I grew up in mostly Prescott area, and then my senior year of high school, we moved down to Mesa.
Okay, so you graduated from Mesa,
Mm-hmm.
and then what was next for you?
Well, then that's when I had to do my religion rebellion years, and kind of discover just life from a different perspective, I think. So I moved out, actually got married and got divorced and got pregnant, all between the ages of 18 and 23. So I kind of went off the rails.
A lot of life thrown at you.
A lot of life. But it was a lot of really fun life experiences too. But that was when I chose to kind of step away from that traditional Christian upbringing and just kind of see what else was out there, like how other people were living.
Was there something that in particular that made you feel that you wanted to explore something different?
I think so. If you grow up in a very religious household, it's very immersive. You're constantly thinking about it, and it's just constantly dictating your life. And there was quite a few inconsistencies and what I felt were hypocrisies. And so the religion and the ideology just wasn't resonating with me anymore. And at that time, I'm like 16 years old, right in that, teenage angst era. And so I wanted freedom. I wanted the independence to kind of go and just see what else was out there and why I needed to choose that way of living. Like, why was it being pushed on me so hard? Let me see what else is out there and if it's really so bad, kind of thing. So I think that was really it. There was just things. I've always been a very deeply spiritual person, and it might be because I was raised so heavily religious, but it was always just like this intuition where this didn't feel fulfilling for me. And so I just wanted to go out and kind of see what else is there. It's like when the Amish people go and they do that little time period where they get to
Yeah.
live like a normal person. That's kind of how I equate that. But I never went back.
Okay. I mean, fair
Yeah.
enough. I I do remember briefly hearing about that or seeing it on a show or something. And do you know more about the Amish people?
I don't
It's
know
like a
too much, but I know it. Yeah, I
year.
think it's 6 months for some reason, I want to say, and that's only from what I've seen on TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like a coming of age practice where it's like they get to go out into the modern world and experience technology and things like that, and alcohol and whatnot. But I know there's a term, I just can't remember
Yeah.
what it is.
And then if they like it,
They can
then
kind of
they
choose,
kind
I
of choose to
think.
stay that path, or they can come back to the traditional upbringing, or
I
yeah.
think so.
And is that kind of how you felt about it? I mean,
I mean, I think at the time I was just going through this internal conflict. I don't think I had the maturity and awareness to think of it quite like that yet. I think it was like I felt like I was imprisoned and I just wanted to break out. I
okay.
wanted to just see what why everything was being told it was so bad, like okay, well then let me taste it for myself, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So graduated in Mesa,
Hmm.
got married, pregnant.
I got married, divorced, and then I got pregnant.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it was when I got pregnant. I had only been dating the guy for a few months. It was definitely one of those very non-Mormon situations, where I just found myself pregnant. Tried it, have a relationship with the father, and that just didn't work out, even before I had the baby. So I got to a point where I physically couldn't work anymore just because I had sciatica pain from being so pregnant. So I moved back in with my parents. And that was just so I would have help with the baby. As I had been living with a roommate on my own and decided not to stay with my partner, seemed like the best choice. And they had, welcomed me with open arms.
That's pretty incredible,
Yeah.
considering it speaks to their character, considering the way that
Yeah.
decided
And
to buck the system, right?
yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that also is just, it gives credence to parents' love at the same time. And I told them I was very respectful and I said, I will go to church with you as long as I'm living under your home, I will respect your rules. And so I did, like it didn't seem like a bad compromise by any means.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never had any real issues with the Mormon community. It's really just the ideology that I didn't quite get into, really.
It
Just
was
didn't quite drink the Kool-Aid all the way, I guess.
and yeah, something in you said
Hmm.
it's not that I dislike what you're doing or
Right.
what's right for you. It's just maybe not right for me.
100%.
Okay.
I've seen some things recently, actually. There's like a special, I think on Hulu or something called Surviving Mormonism. And I watched that series, and I want to say that that is some people's experience. It really is. But we see that in a lot of huge institutions where there's sexual abuse, manipulation, control, all of those things. Luckily for me, I didn't have that happen. I was part of a good, warm church community. That was always, luckily, my perspective. But there are things that happen when you have these big religious institutions. They can't monitor everyone.
Yeah, and I think those are the ones that get the news, right?
Hmm.
When you have a bad egg.
Yeah.
We're experiencing it with soccer, and I won't put anybody out there, but you can see an organization that is just so good and kind, and their players are great, their coaches are great, and then we play one team and we go, "You're associated with how
Yeah.
how are you that bad of an apple
And
in
it's
this
really,
organization?"
yeah, and it's really hard not to want to generalize that opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Well, even though I don't continue to follow that ideology, not all of them are predators. And like there's some really good people that come out of the church. So yeah, that's kind of where I was. And then once I got pregnant and I moved in with my parents, I kind of felt like I got to get my life together. I'm a mom now. Had just been waitressing. I had these like kind of I don't know what you would call them, but fantasies of being an actress someday and never made it out of Phoenix. But I was like, okay, that's not gonna, that's not a good job for a mom. So that's when, roundabout way, I went and got my EMT. There's a few different reasons why I chose that, and none of them were because it was ever in my dreams to be an EMT or a paramedic or anything like that. It was all kind of functional. Okay, it's cheap. I only need to take one semester. I get certified. It's it looks good, right? Like I can have a decent reputation for my child. Uh, yeah, and I like to drive fast. So I said, all right, I'm gonna go do this 6-month course and see if I can start providing for my kid. That's really how that came about.
Okay. And
And the driving fast part was also part of it
well,
too.
I mean, that is one of the benefits of that
Hmm.
career. It's very, very fun.
It can be, it really can be very fun.
Going code three to and from, and yeah.
And I always wanted to help people. Like there was always part of me that was just like, I feel like I'm here to help people. And I didn't know in what aspect. I thought medical stuff was interesting. I thought it could be a fun job, a little adrenaline rush, you kind of buy into the stereotype. And so that was the direction I went.
So, did you go to EMT school in Mesa?
No, when I had gotten pregnant, my parents had actually moved back to Prescott.
Okay.
They were living in Prescott Valley at the time, and so I had moved, then had my son and stayed in Prescott Valley. And that's where I took my EMT certification was at the Yavapai College.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, did you start working on an ambulance right away?
No, so I didn't start on an ambulance because I got paid $10 an hour more to work in the ER. So I got a job as an ED tech right out of my certification program. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I started working in the ER. That's when I met Morgan, actually, my husband. He was working as a monitor tech on the floor, and I was working in the ER, and there was like a little event where he saw me, and rest is history. So yeah, and then we combined our families. He had Ella at the time, and she was only 7 months older than my son. So it was like perfect. He was like 18 months at the time, and she was almost two or something like that. And so it was just like all of a sudden we got together and we had this cute little 4-person family.
The mini
Yeah.
brunch,
Yeah.
because he was a single dad raising a
Hmm.
daughter, right? And you were a single mom raising a son.
Yep. And so it just like fit perfectly. A little rough spots, but like any
We all
relationship.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then we kind of got to a point where I was thinking about nursing school, and I actually took one of the entrance, I think it was called the HESI exam at the time, as like an entrance exam for Yavapai College. And I don't remember exactly why I didn't get in, but I do remember that another tech that I worked with, he ended up scoring lower than me on a section, but got into nursing school. And I remember feeling so angry because I was like, if I was a man, I would have gotten in. Because it's a very female dominant field. Um, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But at the time, I was feeling very, unjustified. So that didn't work out. And then I started getting intrigued with pre-hospital. And that's when they didn't have a paramedic program at Yavapai College at the time, but they had one up at CCC here in Flagstaff. We were wanting to move already. I was wanting to move back to Phoenix. I wanted to really get back there, but Morgan hates the heat and was like, no. So I was like, okay, well, I can go to medic school in Flagstaff, and then we're going to be in a bigger town. We're not in a bigger town, but we thought we were going to a bigger town. So that's how we ended up here in 2010.
Okay, 2010.
And 2006 was when I got my EMT. So I stayed in ED Tech for those 4 years, moved up here, and then started the program. By 2012, I was a paramedic.
Okay. For some reason, I thought I'd met you earlier because I started Flag Fire in 2003, and yeah,
no,
it's
we didn't get up.
Timelines are all mixed up.
Oh, I know. The older you get, they just kind of merge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So then you got on with Guardian after becoming a paramedic.
Almost like right around the same time. I was only an EMT on the ambulance for 3 months before I got my paramedic cert.
Okay.
So pretty limited time in the field, and then I just kind of went right in. So it was a little bit of a rough transition, actually.
And at that time, did you have any, what are they, preceptors or anything? Like, did you ride with another medic, or were you responsible for everything that happened?
No, luckily at the time I was actually scheduled with a paramedic for like 6 months. There was some shifts here and there where I would have to have an EMT partner, but they were basically like, as soon as you're certified, you're off to the races. Threw you to the wolves.
Yeah, I never went for my medic. I like to say I was too smart for it.
I think so.
No. The reason, I mean, there were a few reasons. One, just that much commitment to learn. I mean, you're a doctor in the field.
Intense. I thought it was, and mine was an 18-month program. And originally my plan was to do medic school and then take a bridge and go ahead and go and get my RN eventually. But I got so burnt out on school after that with the clinical hours and having kids and having a family. And I was our main breadwinner for a really long time. So I worked a lot. So yeah, after that, I was like, I don't know if I can ever take a school course again in any form. Yeah, it was intense. It's a lot.
And the responsibilities. I mean, once...
Yeah.
I know they prepare you, but then, like you said, once you're out there, you might be 20 miles from a hospital and you're the only medic.
It can be very unnerving, for sure.
Yeah.
You really want to be confident in your skills. And it's so hard to be because you never know what the scenario is really going to entail,
Clinical setting is so different.
So different.
So different.
Even my assessment skills had to change a lot. I didn't realize that the transition was going to be so difficult. I think I was just a little arrogant. I had gotten to a point in the ER where I felt very competent in my role, and I guess I thought that it would really transition well into the field, and I mean, it eventually did, thank goodness, but it was a learning curve. Yeah, it's different.
Did you mentioned confidence. Did you feel confident as a medic?
I did not feel confident as a medic until probably at least 2 years in. And then I started feeling confident. But even then, it was like, I think I got to a point where I had you just kind of were like, you know what? I don't want to make any mistakes, so I'm going to do what I feel like needs to be done because I need to sleep at night. I need to make sure that I've done everything that I know can be done for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just like, okay, and if I'm going to ask for help, I'm going to ask for help. You know, you kind of, it's a confidence, but it's also like recognizing that you need people to help you. You need your partner to help you. You need the other crews if they're there to help you, you know. And so in a clinical setting, it's a lot easier. You got people at your disposal with the press of a button. But sometimes in those field settings, you could be just you and your partner for a long time. And so it was like I had to feel confident in the fact that I did as much training as I possibly could, and I'm always going with the best intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I had confidence. Not that I knew better than anyone, it was just like, I'm here to do the best I can. And that really helped me just kind of not put so much pressure on myself, but still feel like I need to stay on top of my skills and all that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. What about bad days? And we don't have to get into like a detail of a call. One of my worst questions people ask me is like, "What's the worst thing you've ever seen?" And well, that stinks, right? Because now you have a Rolodex of all these nasty things. But I I can tell you, even just as an EMT, but then at a point in a leadership role as a captain, having a bad day, having something, nothing seems to be going right, and it's usually nothing to do with calls. It's more like administrative things.
It could be so many things. It can be so
Yeah, it
many
could be
things.
personal things, it could
Yeah.
be something at home. Who knows? How do you stay competent and do such a good job when like is there like a switch?
I think for me, I'm going to say there's a switch. And this might sound, I don't know, silly, but I also think I don't think that being a paramedic was ever supposed to be like my purpose, but I've always been able to act. And so I can flip a switch. And a lot of times I would have to really do that. I would have to put on a whole performance for not only my partner, but for the patient or for the patient's family, even for like the hospital staff, anyone. You are definitely you are playing a role in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
You want to stay competent, and that's what all the training's for. I mean, I didn't have my first code until I had been a medic for almost a year and a half.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's lucky.
I don't. It didn't feel lucky at the
For
time.
sure.
It felt like a whole lot of tension building up.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes
But
sense.
I had trained and trained and trained and trained and trained. I mean, you know how many interdepartment trainings we do, and I was on every single one because I needed it and I still hadn't had a code. So I was always doing all the trainings. And then when I did get my first one, it was smooth as butter. Like it went so well. Even though it's a stressful situation, I knew my skills. It was almost like muscle memory at that point. Like, here's the steps, here we go, we're communicating, we've practiced this a million times.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can flip that switch and I can play the role of being competent because those things are more automatic.
And
It
can
really
you?
is.
Sorry, there's a little bug flying around, but
Actually, great distraction.
can
What's a code?
that's what my next question was. I remembered what you said before.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, can you explain? I
Yeah.
can a very rudimentary explanation of a code, but can you kind of explain?
Well, we can do the short definition, which is basically when someone's in cardiac arrest. So their heart has stopped and they're no longer breathing. And that could be for a variety of reasons. So typically, when we go on a code, and you'll hear code blue in the hospital, that's also what they're referring to is that someone's no longer breathing, typically, and that usually is also where they have no pulse. It's not always like that, but when we call a code, there's no pulse and no breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then you're really trying to save their life, you know?
Yeah, that's where you earn your money.
Mm. Yeah. That's where you hope that you're helping someone, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was always so, or initially it was difficult for me because although I had a very similar mindset, I'm going to be competent, do the best I can, and a lot of times it's just not enough. And
Yeah. Oh, the majority of the
majority of the time,
times. I never had a code save during my whole career.
yeah.
My son got one. He's not.
Lincoln, yeah, because he got into, he's in
Yeah, he's an
now.
EMT now, and yeah, he already got his little plaque, and I was like, oh, okay. See how it is. Good for you.
You did it for what, 20-ish years?
Almost, yeah.
So I do want to move on, but I remember, I'm sure I just have to say it and see if you agree, because there were ambulance crews that would show up and I'd go, oh no. And then there were ambulance crews with Michelle bags, and I was like, we got this.
Oh yeah,
And
that is so.
did you feel the same about
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Yes.
There was a few times. I'm gonna say that the majority of the time, I was so excited with who I was working with, but there were the few where I'd be like, okay. All right, let's see how this goes.
I agree. It wasn't even like 50-50. It was probably 95-5. There was a 5% where you're like, oh no, this is going to be a tough call.
Yeah.
Because maybe competence or confidence or something
teamwork.
is
like
teamwork.
Sometimes there's even those, and it's a very type A career, and so you have a lot of control freaks. And I think that's why being a paramedic appealed to me, because I wanted to be in control of the call as much as you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you have some of those that, like, they do not want to work with anyone. They just want you to do what they say. And that's when it's not as cohesive for the patient, and then it makes it like you dread running calls with them because they're just barking orders at you versus working with you for a goal, you know?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything, I don't want to jump too fast, but is there anything that you want to share about that career prior to the decision to leave? Because I want to dig into that soon.
Yeah. I can't really think of anything. I mean, I know a lot of people want to hear about the traumatic things, you know, and it wasn't actually the bad things that I saw. I saw a lot of death. You see a lot of surreal trauma that doesn't register properly. I mean, it just looks unrealistic, you know? So those are there, but I think that as providers, we're very good at compartmentalizing it. And then I think we forget to feel it or feel anything for it. And I felt like I was very, very good at compartmentalizing. I felt like I was one way at work, and then I flipped that switch and I was one way at home. When I was at home, I didn't talk about work. Morgan rarely heard about any calls that I ran. I never talked about it to the kids, so it's probably why my son's doing it. And I kept it very separate. I think there was part of me that knew it was traumatizing to an extent, and I just didn't want to share that with anyone. And I don't think that was smart at all. I think that was a detriment to my mental health over a long period of time. Yeah, so be aware of that, you know, like you might think like, oh yeah, I saw that and it didn't bother me and I'm okay. And even when you think about it, it might not really bother you, but you really shouldn't be exposing yourself to that level of tragedy over and over and over again.
And there's a cumulative effect in my experience. You know, sometimes
so much.
In the beginning, it's like, wow, that was crazy, but I'm okay with it. But and it was almost exciting in a weird way. And then, as time builds on, it's almost, you know, even a mundane call was now frustrating.
Oh, for sure. You get burnt out. Yeah. I would go, I mean, I worked, I think, 5 or 6 years before I actually took a 2-year break and I went and worked in the dispatch center,
Okay.
in comm center. I took 2 years off, went to comm center, and then I came back on the truck in 2020, 2019. It was right before COVID. So 2019. And I mean, then it was nice because I also had a different shift. I wasn't working these long hours, and that's another part of the job. 48 hours, you're awake. I could never sleep at work. I was doing 24-hour shifts, 24 on, 24 off. It's this very horrible sleep schedule. You have no circadian rhythm whatsoever, and that really messes with a lot of things, just physically, mentally, all the things. And no one warned you about these things. No one really prepares you and says, hey, you should probably get your mental and physical health really as optimal as you can before you decide to do a job like this. And then have those habits and routines really in place. And no one emphasizes about that. So then you go, and I know you see it, I see it. We have our coworkers, and the first thing they're doing when they get off shift is cracking open a beer or going to the bar because they just need to release all that anxiety and anticipation for what we might be seeing, And so there's so much that just beats you.
It does.
It beats you.
It does. And in my reflection, I think I try not to live with any regret, but I do regret that you talked about, you're kind of playing a part. And I felt like I could play this part for 48 hours and I could on the outside feel or show that everything's great. And even though inside I'm really frustrated or I'm almost like living in the red.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would be so kind to people who are trying to assault me or spit on me or whatever.
Straight abuse you.
Yeah.
And call you awful names.
And I'm kind to them, but then I go home and I'm a jerk to my wife.
Right.
And I regret that.
I totally understand. There was a few times I remember Morgan kind of saying something to me about like how cynical I was. You get to a point where you almost despise the humanity that you got into the job to help. You almost are like inconvenienced by them,
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, well, why aren't they living a better life so they're not inconveniencing me? And you lose compassion for the people that you're helping, especially the ones that we call frequent flyers. And those are the ones that are just always calling 911. They're not necessarily dying. Some of them are even calling just to see the firemen, right? Just to have a little company. But when you're tired and you're exhausted and you might have just had to watch a kid die, you do not want to see the drunk lady that called you because she's afraid her blood sugar's high and she just ate a cupcake, right? And you're like, how to take care of yourself. You're an adult. It's this very like pendulum swing with the job. Most of the time you're doing things that you absolutely do not feel is helping anyone. You're just going through the motions, or you're seeing someone at their absolute worst day in a way that's what you were hoping for, because that's when you really feel like you're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much conflict.
It is. There is. There's
Yeah.
a lot of internal conflict. I'm not wishing for something bad to happen, but if it does, I want to be there because
Yeah.
I want to solve it because I'm trained to do that.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do is I want to help people.
Yeah.
But we're also expected to help people in not the best conditions for even our own health, So.
Well, thank you for opening up about
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of mirrors in my own feelings about it, and there's also validation that I'm not the only one.
No. I think there's a program out of Canada, and I've been looking more into it, where they're focusing more on preventative burnout. Like, let's prevent burnout, basically. And a lot of it is centered around recognizing when you're starting to lose that sense of compassion that got you into the field in the first place. And I think that that is a real integral part of longevity in the fields. I think if I could have recognized when I was feeling that, that like anger, that cynicism, and not feeling compassion, not wanting to help anybody anymore, really. I think if I could have been on top of that and pulled back during those times, found therapies to help reignite that compassion and then return back, I think I wouldn't have burnt out as often as I did.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
A lot of sense. Because I'm sure we both felt it, but then we've also seen those people that, they start so excited on day one.
Yeah.
And by the time they retire, they've actually been retired on duty for the last 8 years because they just hate showing up.
Yeah. And they bring everyone down with them. Yeah. And then you see, we've recently lost 2 providers just in our community to substance, addiction and suicide and combined. And I think that these are ways that, we're trying to self-medicate ourselves through this trauma because we still want to help people, but we're ending up abandoning ourselves in the process. Yeah.
So I know you have some things with that, but can we go to really quickly? Tell me about the idea and the process to open Insurgent.
Well, that was all Morgan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see, 2016, I was just starting to really get into exercise, working out. I was actually going into like more goal oriented. I think that at the time I was looking into powerlifting. And then Morgan had, and I think this was 2014, he wanted to do jujitsu. He was working at the local community college at the time, some kind of admin position. And he had a coworker who ran a little jujitsu group out of his garage. And Morgan wanted to try it. And Morgan's always been like around military, fire, law enforcement, all that stuff. And jujitsu is very much like a defense game, self-defense, that kind of thing. And he wanted to try it and he got hooked. He got hooked. And then it was actually supposed to be that instructor that was going to stay the instructor and we were just going to run the business. So it didn't quite work out that way.
Right. And I know there's some pivots that have happened and Morgan became a coach, and not only a coach but a great coach.
Yeah.
And I see I measure coaching in the result of what your students do. And for a very small gym, we've got some killers.
He has really blossomed. I mean, he got the foundation from, that small little garage group, but he really trained himself. I mean, and he brought himself to an incredible level. He definitely processes information differently, and I think that works as an advantage in jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu is very technical. And when I met him, he was working on his master's for software engineering. So he's a coder, a programmer. He likes to see those intricacies. And I think that's why he fell in love with jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Yeah. It's just you two. I'm saying the two of you because I know you say it's his thing, but I know you're involved. Because I'd like to interview him as well, and I'm sure he's going to be like, no, it's
it will be so interesting.
Because I think he's told me that before. He's like, I wanted to build a gym for my wife because she was interested in working out.
Well, so basically, yes, I was very interested in working out, but we knew that just a martial arts school was not going to sustain itself easily. And at the time, yes, working out was very much an interest of mine. And so we had actually taken a trip to San Diego where we went to another facility, much bigger than ours, but it was a combination. It's called Victory MMA in San Diego. Shout out. And I mean, they had the workout room, they had all these different classes, and so we wanted kind of like a mini version of that, and we knew Flagstaff didn't have anything like that, so it would set us apart.
Yeah.
So that's how Morgan always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was always what he had been striving for. And so he saw an opportunity. I supported it and I helped him, design the whole gym and stuff. And that's how it came to be.
That's awesome.
But no, it was not because I wanted it.
Well, but you supported him. That really stood out to me because I think so many people, as we were talking before, they're very hesitant to lean into their intuition or what they really want to do. And maybe it's some self-doubt, maybe it's something that they're dealing with, or sometimes it's your partner
Yeah.
or your situation that is not allowing you to take that leap. And I think that support is arguably one of the most important things.
Yeah, and it wasn't a smooth road by any means. I mean, there's been contention here and there even still with the role of the gym in our life. But at the end of the day, yes, I absolutely supported him. That my blood, sweat, and tears is all over the painted walls. I said I would never paint another wall after that. But yeah, I think it's important, but it's also really important as a couple for you to recognize you're still individuals, and you're gonna have different interests.
Mm-hmm.
And you should have a little bit of separation in your lives. At least that's what's worked well for Morgan and I. I mean, we have our mutual friends, but we still have always had like our separate avenues to keep us fulfilled. You don't want your partner to have to be the source of your happiness. That would be really a tough job for them.
That's a tough burden to carry.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you did almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the shift? What was I know there's a lot of context that, burned out and.
Yeah, I mean, this was multiple years kind of building up. 2020 is that was also a shift with our business just because we were shutting down gyms and doing lockdowns and we were in this very like unknown space. So at the time, working on the ambulance was great, but by 2023, I was burnt out again. 3 years later, already burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, we were doing much better financially. All the lockdowns were over. The gym was doing well. My husband was also doing like some outside website work and bringing in extra income there. And he'd always known that I had what I would say was this juvenile dream of being an actress. That's what I thought I wanted to do. Now I have a little more clarity. So 2023, though, I was like, look, I helped you with your gym, right? I helped you with your dream. Can it be my turn? Not quite. But that is why I left, is we were sitting in a space financially that I felt like I could go and explore my own opportunities. And yeah, it just didn't quite work out.
Did you explore acting?
I did, actually. I started taking acting classes, but I have to drive to Phoenix. There's really no acting opportunities in Flagstaff, so that made it difficult. And then some financial things fell through and I had to go back to work. And ironically enough, I got a phone call from a coworker who knew somebody looking for someone to work out at Forest Highlands. And so that's how I got that job for the last almost 3 years, which was interesting. It was very, so I worked as the fitness and spa. It was kind of an evolving situation, but I was fitness and spa supervisor, then moved up into manager, and it's a golf club, which was a whole nother world. I've never, ever been around that type of world. And it was very enlightening, very interesting. I feel like, and I think that's also why I feel like I've lived so many lives, is when you work in a career like a paramedic, you see all sorts of different walks of life, right? You see them at the worst, and you see those people that are on the street, and you deal with a lot of a certain demographic. Well, in this role, I was like all the way to the other extreme with very affluent people. I mean, Governor Ducey was there. I could drop names, and it was such a weird transition. Um, yeah, and it was a rough time because I felt like I was never going to get to realize my own dream because I always had to pick up the financial pieces. So,
So that
little
was
did I know, yeah, it was just shaping me and giving me more learning opportunity for hopefully this next stage. But yeah.
that was financial.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fulfilling a passion or any of that.
No,
I get
I'm
a
good
paycheck.
at it.
I'm gonna go to
It was a
work.
paycheck, yeah. But I never, so even though we have a business, I don't run it. Like Morgan, I was like, you manage it, you run it, you do everything. This is your dream. Well, I got forced to have to manage a gym, which was very interesting, right? Like here I am pushing this one away when I'm having this other one land in my lap. And it was a job that literally landed in my lap. And at the time, I felt like I had to take it. But yeah, it was only for financial reasons. It wasn't because I wanted to. But I think it was because I had a lot to learn about being a leader, being a boss, being a manager, and especially in a setting that has very, very high standards. There was a lot of pressure. It was very demanding, and it was a different type of stress than being a paramedic. But my body reacted the same to it. It was very interesting this last 3 years. I think I needed to learn some things. I remember at one point even telling Morgan, like, I don't think that I'm made to be an entrepreneur. So let me back up a little bit. 2023, retired, wanted to go start acting, but I also, that month later, I had had my first ayahuasca treatment. So I went and had that first experience, which was where the idea for Frontline Fenix first blossomed. But I couldn't get myself disciplined enough as what maybe some outside person might think is like, oh, you should have just buckled down and like created it and made it. And we had, but it was like my passion wasn't quite yet there. And so I think that's what this 3 years was. It was a lot of refining. It was a lot of teaching me what it means to build a business. I built that department out there. It was one of the worst jobs I've ever had, but it's the proudest I've ever been because I took their revenue and I increased it by a very substantial amount in a year. And I did it all on my own. So it was like I needed that confidence so that I could put this back into my foundation.
So I'm sorry, timelines.
Yeah.
You got out of
Yeah, so I resigned in January of 2023, and like 27 days later, I went and I did an ayahuasca and Wachuma retreat because I knew I had trauma. Like I knew. I just felt like, oh, I must be really good at handling it. But I had been interested in plant medicine and had been researching it for a very long time before I actually went to this retreat.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you went to the retreat. You thought you wanted to pursue acting. You kind of did dabble a little bit,
Yeah.
but you did this retreat and then you had an idea for Frontline Phoenix.
Yes.
And can you explain what that idea is?
Yes. So basically, I had a very interesting experience with this plant medicine, but I could see the potential for healing. And I could see the potential for healing with our demographic of EMS, law enforcement, frontline employees, basically. So that's where the name came from. It's those of us that are constantly putting ourselves in situations of more trauma over and over again. So I knew I wanted to start a nonprofit that could start educating people on what other alternatives are out there, because I knew I didn't want prescription medication. I didn't want to be on a pill every day, but I knew I was unhappy. And so I saw the effects of this when I went and I had this treatment, and I knew I had to start telling everyone about it. And that was when it started. Things didn't flow the way that I wanted them to. All these outside circumstances happen, which was the need why I had the need for the job. And so I think that's why I got diverted. And then, you get sucked into the financial situation. And that's why I stayed with it. But I think, like I said, I think there was reasons. But yeah, that's where the idea, because I was like, this is medicine for all of my coworkers in my community, and it can help them.
Can you tell me about your experience? Like, what was that? You mentioned the venue you went to, or where'd you go?
So
How did
yeah, it was a retreat, but it was a very small retreat, and I was actually a gal that was a member at the gym. We knew that we were like-minded, I'll say, especially with all the COVID stuff. And she had actually gone and done this prior. So I don't remember. I think I might have posted something on social media. And so she knew I was interested. And so then she reached out to me with the information about this gentleman that holds retreats. Very secretive and probably illegal.
Okay. Yeah, because it's here in the States, it's not.
It's not legal unless it's for ceremony and you're with an established church.
Okay.
There's definitely a lot of legality fine lines there. But that's what you're seeing now is what are being called psychedelic churches, is because these are, and I do consider them a spiritual medicine as well. We can kind of find the loophole of like, we're doing this as a religious practice, and that's why we can administer these substances.
Okay. So
And then you're legal.
found someone like that.
Yeah, so I found, well, and honestly, I don't know that he's registered as a church. I guess I just didn't care at the time, and I trusted this person, and it just all seemed to be kind of falling into place. Um, so she got me in contact with him, and she was actually going to do it again with me originally. It was supposed to be 4 ladies. The other 2 ladies, she knew I didn't know anyone. I had not met anyone at this retreat. And then the facilitator was there, and then another gal ended up joining us later. But what ended up happening was my friend didn't go. I still went. And it was me, 3 other gals, and then the facilitator. And it was 2 nights.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't far from here. It was like an hour and a half. New River area
Okay.
is where it was, in his home. Very, very nice. I mean, you can tell that, I mean, he's not poor by any means. And then when he told his story, it put me even more and more and more at ease. But yeah, this gorgeous house in New River, very nice. Windows all surrounding. You could see the sunset and sunrise. I mean, gorgeous. We had our own little like pads down on the floor. He had his little altar kind of with instruments and everything. And I got there. It was like, okay, everyone's going to arrive at a certain time, and then we start the weekend. But prior to this, I was sent very detailed instructions as far as like what I should be eating, what I shouldn't be eating, what color clothing to wear. Very, very detailed. Like, don't wear lotion. Like, everything needs to be as natural as possible. So it's like no synthetic anything. Like, I didn't wear nail polish. Like, I really tried to do everything. Don't have coffee, don't have alcohol, don't have all these things. Like, you're trying to get your vessel ready to receive this medicine, right?
Interesting.
So I did all the things, and then it was like the day before, my friend calls and she's sick and can't go, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go. And so I drove down. They were all very, very welcoming. One gal is actually a very famous, becoming quite a famous pastry chef in the area. I'll let you know who it is after, so
Okay.
just in case. And then the other gal's a very successful realtor in Scottsdale. So these are like good people, I don't know, affluent people. And they were all so kind and so welcoming, and I was so nervous.
Like,
I remember I filmed a video, I should look for it, where I was like talking to myself on the way down and like crying and trying to be like, no, you're wanting this because you're trying to find direction. That's why I want. I knew I had trauma. I knew like, but I also knew I wanted to pivot and I wanted to have a whole new path and I needed clarity. So I was like, I'm going for clarity and I'm, hoping I'm going to get this big answer from God, right? On what I should do next with my life. Did that happen? No, but I still learned a lot and had a very beautiful experience.
and I know, so, one of my friends, former military, he's gone and done Ibogaine,
Oh, that's what I want
and
to do.
he's been, I think, 3 times. And he said you actually do set intentions, like
Mhm.
what you want to receive.
Yes.
So that was part of your process as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the facilitator even talked about that before we even took the first cup. Very much, what are your intentions? We had journals that we could write in, and I had researched a lot. I watched videos on ayahuasca, read articles on it, heard stories, which is why I felt so drawn to it, to get a little bit of clarity on what direction I should go in my life, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, yeah, it is and I think that's the point. You can do some of these substances. I don't know anything about ibogaine. I actually really, really want to try it. But like, let's say shrooms. You can do these recreationally. It's not going to have the same effect than if you have that intention. It's intelligent technology, these plants. It's blowing my mind.
Interesting. I've heard it so much, and you said you were so scared.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared getting off the fire truck and going, I know I need to sleep, and I'm gonna try gummies. And I was scared to walk into a weed store and buy gummies. So I can't
Because there's
imagine.
such a stigma, right?
There is. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine the feeling of like, I'm maybe not
And I'm doing this, and and this is,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I hope the police don't raid the place, but he was actually a lawyer in Scottsdale before he started facilitating. So I was like, okay, he knows what he's doing.
He'll at least get us out of this.
Right? Well, at least, yeah, can at least show up to court.
So you didn't find the answers.
No, so the first night so the only hallucinogenic experience I had had before this was 20 plus years prior when I had done shrooms recreationally. So I kind of knew, but I had no idea if it was going to be a totally different experience. So, and I think the facilitator also knew that I was pretty new as far as tripping. So the first night, I didn't feel much after the first cup. He gave me more. And then I just kind of went into a visual. I really didn't receive anything. I kind of felt like I was melting into the rest of the scenery, and there's lots of what we call sacred geometry and colors, and it's all moving to the music, and it was beautiful, but I didn't receive anything. And I'd even almost came out of that feeling like abandoned because I'd heard stories. I had an expectation, which I do not recommend. I had an expectation. People talk about grandmother ayahuasca, is what they say. And they talk about her visiting you. And a lot of people's experiences are almost like dreams where they're having this whole conversation or experience that feels like a dream. Mine was just like I took some shrooms and I'm just looking at the walls melt, you know? So I felt like I wasn't worthy to be visited by grandmother ayahuasca. No one told me that. It was just like this weird story I made up about it. So the next morning we all kind of get up and during the day we did Wachuma, otherwise known as San Pedro. So ayahuasca, I was like, okay, all right, well, we're doing it again tonight. Maybe it'll be different. And then we go on to do Wachima throughout the day, which is a very beautiful heart opening medicine, but it's very somatic. So it was great. I mean, I had a nice time, but I remember sitting there being alone and thinking like I don't have anyone to kind of like work through anything with. Like I could talk to these people, but I don't know them. So it didn't feel good to go deep with them necessarily. But it was fine. Had a great massage, you know. I mean, they make it very spa-like at this. A lot of these retreats, they do take very good care of you. And then the second night was when we did ayahuasca again. And that's when I would say most people would call it a bad trip. But it actually, it gave me insight into just somatic healing and release. Go figure. So the second night, I think I got probably a bigger dose because I handled everything so well. And then that night, I was absolutely freaking miserable. Yes, I was seeing all the patterns and all the colors and all the music swirling around me, but I felt like I could not get out of my skin. Like I was so uncomfortable in my body. And I mean, it felt very, very intense. I was thrashing around. I'm like shaking, like just full of energy. And I was like, I'm going to have a seizure. I'm going to have a seizure and I'm going to die. Should I tell the guy? And I'm also a people pleaser. So I was like, well, I don't want to disturb the facilitator, but I was getting really scared. And I was like, I don't know. And nobody else is saying anything. Everyone's doing their own thing. It's a very personal experience. I didn't want to interrupt it. So I just laid there with it. And I really was like, I might die. And then finally, yeah, I was like, something told me it was like, just focus on home and breathe. And so I laid down on my back. I started doing this very deep rhythmic breathing. And I just started thinking about how I was grateful for my family and all of these things. And then I started getting these insights like, oh, the reason that I feel like all of the things I've seen as a paramedic aren't hurting me mentally is because they're being stored in my body. And right now they want out. And that was like the insight that was coming through. And we're seeing that now, even being proven scientifically, that your body holds trauma, your body keeps the score.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all this chronic disease is coming from. And not just from PTSD trauma being held in your body, but just the different traumas of life, you know, being a woman and you know, having all these crazy hormonal things, or even feeling like you're not safe, you know, because you're a woman. There's a lot that can go into that somatically. And as women, we feel more. So I guess that's why I'm referring more to women. But that was a huge insight for me and really got me hooked on breath work and the physiological effects of it too, because they're real. They're like science based. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't had out of body experience or the trip, but even doing like a Wim Hof type breathing before you get in the cold plunge, it really matters. It helps a lot to find that breath compared to just hopping in cold turkey without having your breath right.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, just to recenter you.
You know, I always teach the kids in soccer, jiu-jitsu, if they get hurt, like find your breath first.
Yeah.
Let's work through that, and then we can start dealing with the rest. And it is interesting seeing that shift or feeling the shift. I mean, sometimes I feel warm getting in the cold plunge, and I know it's not warm, but your body is reacting to the breath. It's very interesting.
So for a little bit, I thought I was supposed to be a breathwork facilitator after that. Didn't quite pan out, but but it was still, it was very, it was just another, it was another insight that led me to recognize that trauma treatment is a multifaceted, multidimensional thing, and we need to be taking a multidimensional approach.
And so Frontline Phoenix was born as an idea.
It was born as an idea. I think we had actually filed and got all of our licensing then. But yeah, I was feeling resistance for some reason. And then, like I said, life happened and I had to get a job. So I started working at the golf club. And that really was very, very, very stressful and very, very demanding. But I learned a lot.
Do you, in hindsight now, do you feel like the timing wasn't right just because that's life timing? Or do you almost feel like I needed to learn a few lessons before I could really move forward with this?
Yeah, I
Do it
think
the
I
right
had
way?
to learn some lessons. I think I needed to see that way of living. Um, I guess not being from an affluent community, you know, I never hung out with rich and famous people. It was so interesting to me for me to see how regular these people were and how they had the same problems that everybody else does. Nothing makes them special. I thought I was going to be around all these special people. Maybe I'll be special too. You know, like in this weird subconscious way, there was this I was less than, and there was this internal hierarchy. And that was a lot from the way I was raised. I'm seeing that now. Being raised in these traditional Christian religions, there's a hierarchy. And women is not very far to the top. There's men before us and then God, right? So I always felt less than. And I never felt good enough to actually dream these big dreams. Kind of, but I always thought I'm just average. And then when I went and worked at the golf club, and I was like, all these people are average
Everybody's
too.
average.
Yeah. But I was like 43 having to realize this. It was like I knew it, but I mean, I was so immersed in it that it was just I needed to see it. And then I needed to also see like how these people run their businesses and what they're looking at and marketing and event planning. I'd never really done any event planning. I had to do event planning out there. I mean, I got thrown into a lot of very uncomfortable projects, but they're all things that need to help Frontline grow.
Discomfort creates growth.
Exactly. And then I had to learn like how to run the business from them. Like I think that was more like they really taught me how to run a business. And so now I can apply that to Frontline when I didn't really have that exposure. I mean, we had the gym, like yes, but it's a very niche business and I wasn't really into it. And then I was being forced into all of these projects like event planning, um, budgets, statistics, like keeping track of all this stuff, being a manager. And so I needed that time and not having Morgan trying to mansplain anything to me, right? I needed that time to be able to like get the confidence, like, yeah, I can run a business and I can make it successful. And there was a lot of, during that time when I was working in the golf club, there was a lot of steep self exploration going on. I was probably the most depressed I'd been in my life, at my lowest for sure. I mean, because I still felt like I had no clear purpose. And I'd felt like, even as a little kid, I'm here for something. But I never felt like I'd been realized. And so during that time, I'm feeling forced to work this very, very demanding job. I mean, I was working 60 plus hours a week easily to keep things afloat, but I'm still wanting this purpose, you know? And so I felt, and like, just like I felt abandoned from grandmother ayahuasca, I felt exiled by God. I thought, this is my karma. I left the church. I've done drugs. I had a baby out of wedlock.
It's all
The
God,
sins.
on me because of, yeah.
Maybe, and I'm like, God isn't giving me anything good in my life right now. I was in a very, very, very dark place. And that was even after doing the ayahuasca. Now, when I did those medicines at the beginning of January, I was in a state of real gratitude and peace for months. Probably until I got the job in April. I'd taken that at the end of January. I felt amazing. And then I got the job, and it just, time and life and my own inner critic and thoughts just took me down really, really deep. Deeper so that I could realize where those core wounds were affecting me. The fact that I feel exiled by God is making me play small. It's making me take a job at a golf club, it was a new way of framing things, but at the time I was just feeling punished, and feeling like if I don't have a purpose to live for, what's the point of living? That's how dark I was.
That's scary.
It was scary. It was scary. It was scary for Morgan. It was scary for my kids. But I had to get there. I had to go that deep so that I could actually come back up and see how everything in my life has been preparing me for a purpose. My life is the purpose. Not any one single act. And that's how it should be. Mm-hmm. But we all have to recognize that in each other too, that we're all going to have our own authentic paths. We don't even know what they look like when we're on them, but we're on them, And so it was like, I had to see all the dots connecting, but I had to wait till a lot of dots came out first. And so and really all of this has just kind of come up to the surface and is really all just kind of new lessons, new perspective on life. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to live life. I didn't enjoy it. But now that I'm like, I was looking at everything in a way that created my own suffering. I was the one thinking I was being punished. I was the one thinking that I was not good enough. And I was the one creating those stories in my head. Yes, they were there because of situations that I was born into and how I felt those institutions affected me, right? Like I was the one telling myself that story that I was less than. I'm not good enough because I'm a woman. I'm not good enough because I didn't stay Mormon. I'm not good enough because of all of these things. I had to recognize that that was a story I was telling myself. It's not because I really wasn't good enough. It's because I was telling myself that story and letting it dictate how I made choices. Does that make sense? So I was playing small,
Yeah, that self-doubt. And you mentioned it was really hard on your family. Were you sharing that, or did they sense that?
I know that they could sense it. I mean, I was at a point where I was just apathetic. I had no fun in me. I had no life in me. I was depressed. I mean, Morgan and I went to counseling. I had one counselor say, because we were exploring treatment options for depression and all of these things. And she was like, go get your hormones tested before you go get on any prescription medication. But that's how low I was, that it was apparent to everyone around me. I mean, if you look at a depression questionnaire, I would check every single box. I didn't care about anything. I was showing up out of obligation for my family. And because I do love my family, but I wasn't happy in the life I was living. And so they could tell. I didn't want to do anything, didn't want to go anywhere, didn't want to, and I was always exhausted from work because I was always working. So,
So you mentioned that but you did learn from these affluent people. Was that an active, were you trying to learn? Did you say, you know what, these people have some insight to things that I want to learn about? Or was that just kind of absorbed and now it's an afterthought? You're like, oh, I did learn while I was there. Does that
I
make
knew
sense?
I was learning because I was definitely being put in positions that I was uncomfortable with as far as like needing to learn. Like um, I had to launch a whole new software for them and I had to configure the whole thing. I had to plan a whole event, and I never done that. And at that time, I knew I was being forced to learn these things. And at the same time, I was also putting a lot of pressure on myself because of how affluent they were. I wasn't learning from them in a sense like, oh, you've made money, let me get all your secrets. They really didn't have any, and they don't want to give them out. I mean, they're kind of selfish. Then I'll just put it bluntly. These are people that are not going to give you any secrets unless you can do something for them.
Mm.
It was very clear that that's how they live. It's very transactional. If you do something for me, I'll do something for you. So I wasn't learning from them in that sense. It was more of just like, this is the role in building a department, and here's what needs to be done.
It's the pressure cooker that, okay.
Yeah. And it kept me busy enough that I hope that a lot of that depression and where I was at that time hopefully mitigated some of that from my family by me being too busy, as they didn't have to see it all, because it was rough. Hopefully shielded them a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then when did you make a decision to move on? Was it a really low point, or were you kind of in a clear mindset that I need to resign from this and I need to start this?
I knew it was getting close this summer. And I mean, the job, like I said, is so demanding. I was physically, I could tell if I didn't either figure out how to take the pressure off of myself, have boundaries with this job, give myself rest, I was going to have a chronic illness. I was feeling awful physically as well as mentally. I wasn't eating. I had no appetite. I didn't want to go work out. I didn't want to do anything. I'm losing weight, and all I'm doing is working and living off protein bars. I knew this wasn't sustainable. But I didn't know how that was going to look necessarily. So I knew the summertime we were getting close, because the summertime's when it's busy and when I'm really getting frazzled. And then Morgan's accident happened, and it was almost like his accident became my near-death experience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Can you explain the accident so that those that don't know?
Yeah. So it was, and it was very interesting because I remember that morning, and I don't know if you recall this. It's an old song. I remember from 1998. It was being played for graduations, and it's called the Sunscreen Song or something, where this guy is narrating with like music playing in the background, and he's giving like a graduation, like a commencement speech, and he's telling people, like, giving life advice. And one part of it talks about something happening on a random Tuesday. And I remember hearing that in my head that day, and I was like, ugh, dreading going into work, getting ready in the morning. And I'm like, well, things might happen on a random Tuesday. Maybe I won't have to go to work. Not probably 15 minutes later did I get the phone call on a random Tuesday. And it was a friend at the gym, but a call came through with Morgan, like it was him calling. So I answered. I'm like, hello, like, what are you doing? You're teaching right now. So this was almost 7:30 in the morning. Morgan teaches a 7 a.m. class. I knew he was teaching jujitsu. He calls, I answer, and then I hear his buddy on the phone saying, something happened. You need to get here. And I said, oh, okay. Morgan has back problems. I thought he threw his back out. Oh no, I'm going to have to go help him, whatever. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then I hear Morgan, he's like, Michelle, get here, something like that. And I was like, okay, I'll be right there. And I literally just got right in the car and drove straight to the gym, which is only 3 minutes from our house. I even went around somebody in our neighborhood because I was just like, what is going on? So I get there and it was very surreal because it felt like it was slow motion and I felt like I was a paramedic on a call again. It was like almost like I was having this weird flashback. And I was feeling the same anxiety like when I was new. And I was like, I hope I don't mess up. And I was like, oh God, what am I going to walk into? So I get there and I see how my husband is, and he's in this very awkward position, and he's telling me that he can't feel anything. And still, I didn't really know what had happened, but he was in the position that he fell, and it was very contorted. So I was like, we need to get him aligned, basically. And so that's when, like, Matt and I log rolled him. And then I got an idea of what was happening. He was doing a shoot. Is that what they call it?
Shooting for a takedown.
Yeah, he was shooting in.
But
Yeah, he was shooting in for a takedown, and basically what happened was his head hit his partner somewhere in this area in the chest, and it's supposed to slide and go underneath the armpit, and then you throw him over and take him down, right? Well, Morgan's head didn't move except his body kept going, and then he hyperextended his neck all the way back. And then he was essentially instantly paralyzed when he fell to the floor. I got there, we rolled him, and he couldn't feel anything, but he was just like, we rolled him over and he just let out this huge exhale. And I was like, oh, okay. Maybe we put his back into place and he's okay. I didn't even know it was his neck yet. And then all of a sudden the pain started. He was getting feeling back and having all this weird tingling and numbness and kind of history from there. But he had been paralyzed when I got there. And then went to the hospital. We found out that he had hyperextended his neck so far back that he has a central cord injury, and he actually has a congenitally narrow neck, which is why he can't do jiu-jitsu anymore. If he does any more head cranks, he could, be paralyzed again.
It's terrifying.
So it was a huge miracle, the whole thing. And the whole time it was happening, it was so surreal for me because I was having like these old feelings and trying to run a call again and be very professional, but this is my husband. And I was like, frazzled. But that's when randomly the dots started connecting. I started seeing, and this is going to get weird, but I started almost seeing how like even my own thoughts, negative thoughts, energies, whatever you want to call them, had even brought us to this moment. Like in a weird way, I had felt like I had called in this accident. I'd been begging for a miracle. I was like, something save me. I need change. I need a huge change. I need a miracle. And then this happened, and I can't explain all the things that were flooding in at the time. Like I said, it was so surreal. And I'm having these weird like snapshots happening, and I'm trying to process all of this while taking care of him and him processing his own experience. But I'd recognized that he was so close to dying, so close, that of course that's going to change. It's going to shake you. It shook our foundation, right? Like, oh, wait. If something happens to you or him, then what? And I was in this place of feeling suicidal, and then to see this happen and to recognize the miracle for what it was kind of like, look, here's life. You want a chance to live it or not? You want a chance to live it with a different perspective? Take this experience and get everything out of it that you can. And that really helped me see the beauty in life again. I wasn't seeing it. I didn't want to help anyone. No one was worth helping. I wasn't worth helping anyone. I wasn't good enough. There's no way that I can build anything that can help anyone. I can have no real purpose in life. I'm here to financially support this family, and that's it. And then for that to be like, girl, you're missing out on life. And you almost missed out on life with your husband and your family. You're 45 years old. I feel like I got one more chance to kind of like really participate in living again. And that's basically why I call it, I was like, I had the near-death experience for you. In this weird way, he had to have the pain, but I had already been going through this emotional death. And I needed something to live for again. But I needed something that's not just my husband. I needed to live for me. And it was as all of this was coming out, because when something shakes your foundation, the cracks get shown. And so then you start seeing opportunities on where you can do better, right? Like, really, to put it simply.
Yeah.
And so I was given this opportunity to see where not only can I do better for me, but I can do better for us, my husband and I, and for my family. I mean, there was even a time during this dark 3 years where I wasn't sure if Morgan was going to stay with me, because I was that miserable. And I didn't expect him to. But I certainly didn't want to leave the relationship. That was never an option for me. And I think that even with the way his accident was timed, it was timed so that we could almost have a rebirth together. It shook him enough that he's like, okay, let's create our dream life and let's do it together now. Instead, it was like we were trying to create our dream lives separately and hoping that they meshed together, but with what we thought the other person wanted, instead of being more clear with each other on what we want. Like, I don't want to live in Flagstaff. I don't want these things, and I don't want the gym, but I need to have a sense of purpose, and I want to live, like, I want to build a life with you, but I don't like the one that we built so far. But we're both ready to change it, and we recognize now how to be able to do that while honoring our individual passions, but recognizing how to communicate and still build a life together. So
That's beautiful. I mean,
it's been a lot.
What a path to get there.
Right. I know.
Well, it's a beautiful recognition and rebirth, if you will, like you said. Wow. Thank you for the authenticity.
Yeah. I mean,
emotion.
it's been
It's
a
incredible.
wild ride. But I feel so thankful, of course, now. I mean, just like you said, no regrets. There was a time where I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to say that. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to say that I don't regret doing something that brought me to where my life was at that point. I didn't know what that meant. And now I was able to reframe, even looking at my past and recognizing that that was how I needed to get to this place in order to move forward in a way where I can honor my authenticity and still serve others and not abandon myself. I was abandoning my wants and my desires and compromising for what I thought the world was wanting, what was going to make me happy, guarantee my happiness, and I was abandoning myself into losing myself, really. And so it was like I had to tear down every attachment to any identity I thought I ever had in order to recognize the beauty in just life and the life that I was given as a gift.
Incredible. So where are we at today?
So now I quit the golf club. I'm not even like, I'm not letting things be a factor in my decision making anymore. And a lot of that was, am I good enough to be on a podcast? Am I good enough to be out there sharing this message? And so now I'm out there sharing the message. So Frontline has been up and running. It's still the old website. We had a website, but it's still new. I actually am gonna start going around and sharing the knowledge that I have when it comes to using these plant medicines, because even through this dark time, that's when I did more treatments, and I think it was what kept me from making the ultimate decision that you can't come back from. And that's important, because when you're in that dark place, talking to a therapist was not going to help me. Taking Prozac was not going to help me. I needed to see the interconnection that we all hold with each other, and that how valuable it is for each one of us, and that there is no hierarchy. There is no hierarchy. Just like you said, we're all human. When I went and saw this affluent people at the golf club, I recognized they're no different than I am. I'm good enough to do whatever they've done if that's what I wanted. But I wouldn't have been open-minded enough to see the uncontrollables, like Morgan's accident, to see that as a gift. I wouldn't have been able to see that if I hadn't been working with these medicines already. I would have been closed-minded. I would have been attached to these identities still. I wouldn't have recognized my thought loop patterns. This incessant cycle of staying depressed, those helped me start breaking those so that I could be ready for this. It was like, all right, here's this big, crazy accident. Are you going to see it for what it is? Are you going to see it for the miracle you've been begging for? Or are you going to see it as another, I'm a victim.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening to me.
Yeah.
I'm getting kicked down again. And I thought of that a lot. Like, I looked at my life a lot. It used to always be life is happening to me, and I must be doing something wrong. And now I don't feel that way anymore. Now it's like life is a gift, and it's the same gift that we all get, and we just get to choose how we look at it, and what we do with it. So, yeah. So Frontline's up and running. We're doing...
Yeah, so what are you hoping to accomplish with Frontline?
So education right now is my main focus. I want to start doing speaking engagements where I tell both the science and, just the beneficial effects for those that were suffering from PTSD, depression, and like niches. I don't like niches either. So even though it's called Frontline Fenix, and that was the name that came across 3 years ago, I don't want it to just be for frontline employees. I want it to be for anyone who really feels like they're on the front line of a battle for their life, because that's where I was. I was fighting and I didn't even realize it. I'd almost given up. And I'm so glad I didn't. And I just want people to know that on the other side of that is light, like so much love and light. And it's possible. But sometimes you have to go through the dark times. And so I want people to know what's out there to help them get through the dark times. So I'm working on education. I'm going to start doing speaking arrangements just to get the word out, just so we break the stigma. And we talk about mental health when it comes to these professions, especially. I mean, we all use dark humor to cope, and it's fucking funny. I hope you probably have to beat that out, but it's funny at the time, and it helps a lot. It takes a lot of that stress off. But at the end of the day, sometimes these things accumulate. And when burnout's there as well, like you just need something that's going to help you break those cyclical thoughts because it's hard to do on your own. And that's really what they do on a neurological level, on a mental level, on a spiritual level.
I've been hearing that over and over again. And I even said, I was like, I want to go do Ibogaine in Mexico with Rob. And nothing's happened yet. And I feel I'm in a great place.
Yeah.
But I know I'm holding on to stuff.
Yeah.
I know it.
Well, and that's also like each medicine has a different purpose. So maybe Ibogaine's not the one for you, but maybe there is one that can help you release whatever you think it's going to release. And that's part of the education is like, is psilocybin for me? Is ayahuasca? Is wachuma? Is Ibogaine? Is 5-MeO-DMT? Like there's so many options that I want the education out there so that people know where to go safely, ethically, do it legally, keep your jobs if you want to keep your jobs, you know. It's not just for people that are out. I think it would be even more beneficial when people are getting those first burnout signals if they went and did a plant medicine therapy to kind of help rejuvenate that compassion, to remember the connectiveness that we are, you know. So that's that. And then we also want to start sponsoring treatments. As soon as we get enough donations, I want to sponsor someone to go get Ibogaine in Mexico and or wherever. I also know of lots of legal retreats inside the United States. I know of them outside the United States. So I just want to get that out there to the community. Yeah.
Very good. That's, yeah. And you're still serving. Heart of service doesn't go away.
No.
So how can anybody find you?
Website www.frontlinefenix.org. We spell Phoenix aesthetically pleasing. So Frontline Fenix, and it's FENIX.org. You can email me, Michelle at frontlinefenix.org. Donate on the website. We've got an Instagram, frontline_Phoenix. Yeah. Lady Insurgent is my Instagram too, but they can find me there as well.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Second guest ever. Incredible story.
Thank you. I
wish you
really
the best.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Awesome.
Give me a hug. We'll stay down here. Stay down on camera.